and show me what love is. No skin can hold me now. I'm done, I'm breaking down. Come and show me what love is. Come and show me what love is. We are free with the swine.
Well, hello everybody that's joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Morningstar TV. We are so honored to be here with you this morning. I've got Nathan Plowman, the man.
Good morning.
Yeah, the man, the myth, the legend.
Don't know about that, but
Oh, you are. You
let's
totally
just go
are.
with that.
Yeah, but this morning we wanted to have a real honest conversation with you guys and with each other, just about some of the stuff that's going on. And we're just it's going to be really fluid. It's not necessarily going to be a lot of teaching, but just a lot of conversation. By the way, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, even YouTube, if you've got a question throughout this, just go ahead and post it. We'll try to keep up as best we can and address them at some point. But Plowman here is, well, if I could describe him, and you could totally interrupt me at any time, but he is an adventurer. All right, this guy is like,
sounds good.
Yeah, you're like Indiana Jones,
Okay.
in my opinion. Like, I've said it many times before, I would trust this man with my life. But he's been all over the world. He is our director of MSU. He is all things nature. He also oversees our Special Forces program. So he's got a lot of great insight. And by the way, the dude is pretty much like an awesome scientist. So he's just an all-around cool guy.
Okay, scientist.
Yeah, an okay scientist.
My background is science, medical science. So.
Yeah, to me, any scientist is pretty awesome because I can't even remember anything from my school. So anyway, so Plowman, today, I thought we'd kind of discuss just everything that's been going on, especially with, we're seeing something that's really prevalent right now, a lot of different, kind of fear-based notions and thoughts that are really going around.
Opinions.
Yeah, opinions.
Conspiracies, you might call them.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't like using that word too much because people get offended by that word, but some of them are conspiracies.
Right, but really that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. And so,
Well, the interesting thing about that is this is not a recent phenomenon.
Right.
Conspiracies have been going around for centuries, even thousands of years. So it's not a new thing, and some studies were done even recently showing that conspiracies haven't suddenly spiked in the last decade.
Right.
They've been kind of consistent throughout the last couple of decades. You look back at, history throughout Europe. You look at the Jews in Europe and how they were blamed for everything that happened in Europe. If there was a plague in Europe, I think there was one in Spain, the Jews were blamed.
Wow.
And as a result of that, they were persecuted, they were slaughtered. So you see this kind of thing happening again and again throughout history. All these people, when new things arise, when new events happen that don't seem to fit into our norm, like a plague, for example,
Sure.
then we look for narratives that can fit our norm. We kind of want to make it kind of like normalize it somehow, so we create narratives that help us understand it, and then we blame somebody for it.
Right.
We're looking for someone to blame. It's not just a natural occurrence, not just as things that happen naturally. We're looking for a blame focus, and so this is what happens. And so it's not unusual, it's not uncommon. I think social media has allowed us to spread the information much faster than ever before.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
I think
do you
that's
think it's been a good thing, bad thing? Where do you see this?
I have a personal dislike for all social media.
Right,
I don't know if you know that about me, but
Yeah.
I think it has given voices to people who shouldn't have a voice.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's given a voice to people who needed to have a voice.
Totally, yeah.
And so there's a double-edged sword in this whole thing.
Right.
But for me personally, I want to make sure that I use social media correctly and responsibly.
Yeah.
And one thing I really want to convey today throughout this discussion is how do we as Christians really use social media responsibly?
Right.
Are we really promoting truth, things that are encouraging, things that are positive, things that are bringing peace to people? Or are we really just spreading things that are not true?
Right.
Just because they may fit into our own anxiety or our own fears?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I want to talk about today. We're not going to get into any particular conspiracy theories.
Sure.
We're mentioning no names today. We're not mentioning anything like that. We just want to talk about the general idea of how do we, as Christians, use our voice responsibly.
Yeah. And so can I ask you a question? So you made the point of, knowing what we're spreading, having the responsibility of what we're spreading, and that it be true. So I think this is a really practical question, but I think a lot of people kind of don't do the follow through on this, is how do you do the research when you see, let's say, like a video or a post that has really, really blanket statements out there? How do you do the research and dive in and really see that this is something that's factual?
That's a great question. That's obviously one that's, it takes time.
Right.
You can't just automatically understand all these topics out there and all these ideas that people are throwing around. And again, you got to kind of wade through a whole morass of like misinformation or opinions. And, we've got bloggers who disguise their blogs as news websites.
Right.
So it looks like a legitimate news website and it looks like we're listening to real news, but it's really not, it's just some guy with a blog. And so we've kind of, again, given these people these voices, and we have to be really discerning to really walk through this stuff. But the question that comes to me is like, why do we need to promote this stuff? Why do we need to even push this stuff out there? If we don't understand, if it irritates us and stirs us up, do we need to push it out there? Mm-hmm. If we don't understand it, if we don't know if it's true or not, there's no evidence that proves it is true, then why does it need to be out there?
Right.
I mean, I miss the days when social media was pictures of your kids and pictures of your food you just about to eat.
Right.
Now back then I hated that too. It's like, stop posting pictures of your food. I don't care what you're about to eat for dinner tonight.
Right.
But now I miss those days. And I think we saw the height of this this craziness on social media hit around the elections with last elections.
Yeah.
And it's kind of calmed down. And now these social media sites are trying to be more responsible with who posts and what they post.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing, but censorship is always dangerous.
Sure.
We start operating in censorship, and again, it's not government censorship. This is a private enterprise. Facebook's a private enterprise. It's not like a government-based website. So they have the options to censor what they want.
Right.
But again, we start delving into very dangerous territory when we start, censoring things we don't like or we, don't seem to be true.
Right.
So it's such a messy kind of place to try to find a way through. But to me, it's always, because of my background in science, I have the ability to kind of research things at a deeper level, understand things at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And so I can easily spot, something doesn't smell right.
Right.
But anything that, again, it's just it's difficult. There's just no easy way to do it. And again, it's not the purpose of social media to promote this kind of stuff. I want to go back to the days when we just show pictures of families.
Exactly. I'm so with you. And
that's why I love Instagram. Instagram, you can't do this stuff.
Yeah, there's no arguments on Instagram.
I love Instagram now.
Yeah.
So I think Instagram's doing better than Facebook.
Right. So, I think
it is owned by Facebook, of course.
I think one thing, like you're mentioning, you got to do the research, you got to be responsible, kind of use social media for what it really should be. We're not on there to argue and all this kind of stuff. But when that kind of thing comes up, so let's say there's, I won't go into specifics, but you posted something earlier that kind of caused some reaction, but
sure.
I was noticing, and this isn't me trying to be like, oh, Nathan, you're so awesome, but honestly, I was noticing in your responses, and I think this really helps, especially as Christians that are going through this, in your responses, it was very calm, very factual, not emotional.
Right.
Always was trying to lead to the, hey, well, let's find out the truth together.
Right.
Do you think that also is a big factor in how not to escalate this kind of thing?
Right, and I think we've got to be careful. Accusations are never a good thing.
Right.
Accusing people of being mass murderers or intending to try and kill the population of the world or destroy the economy or whatever it is, these are very serious accusations. And as Christians, our job is not to accuse people. There is a person that has that job, the accuser of the brethren kind of thing, and we don't want to be part of that process. We have to be looking at these things with a calm, let's have a discussion about this.
Yeah.
Look, this whole pandemic thing hasn't gone really great.
Right.
Again, the world wasn't really ready for it. No one really knew how to respond correctly. There's always that tension between the healthcare world and the medical side of things and the protecting the people and their health, and then the economy side of things.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that tension. In every hospital around the country, there's that tension. Usually the hospital is run by an administrator who's generally more focused on saving money and budgets, where the people on the ground dealing with people are more worried about the healthcare, the care of the people. And so it's always going to be those tensions in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
And no one really knew how bad this was going to be or how not bad it was going to be.
Right.
And so, we're just living in these uncharted territories. You have to be just calm with everybody. Just give people a chance to figure it out, and let's take this time to learn what we did right, what we did wrong. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, follow-up meetings about this stuff, a lot of inquiries about how the response happened, what happened. But I think we as people need to just kind of let them figure that out.
Right.
And let's see how best we could do it next time. How can we be more prepared next time?
Yeah.
for this to happen, because this will happen again. These pandemics have been going on, for a long time, for centuries, and they'll continue to go on.
Yeah.
And especially as the world encroaches more into new environments and we eat more and more different species and we interact with more species,
Right.
we're going to see more of these crossovers events happening. And, scientists have been preparing for this for a long time.
Yeah.
We did a talk here at Morningstar a month before this health thing broke out about
Right,
pandemic preparedness.
Right, yeah.
How to prepare for a pandemic.
Right.
It's not like we were surprised here. I wasn't surprised. As soon as I heard it was called a pandemic, I was like, okay, time to go into lockdown for a while.
Right.
And I was just like, we're all ready to go. Me and my wife were ready. We didn't have to run to the store and buy all this stuff.
Right.
Because we had it all in the house already. We're just ready for it. And again, it's not because I knew it was going to happen, but because I knew things could happen.
Sure. Yeah.
So
you were educated. Yeah.
we're educated. And so I
Right.
think this one has become a shock to most of the world because most people haven't realized that these things can happen
Right.
and the consequences of them.
Yeah.
And, the only way we know how to deal with pandemics is shut down.
Right.
Lock everyone up. It's the best way to deal with it. That's why the whole world did the same thing pretty much. And that wasn't guided by American, theories. It was guided by the theory of the epidemiology. That's what everyone knew how to do it. And most countries had pandemic plans.
Mm-hmm.
And they just pulled them out and started using them.
Right.
So again, there's no nefarious trying to kill or destroy or whatever. It's just the way things happen.
Right.
And again, I don't necessarily agree that everything happened perfectly,
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a
but we're going to learn.
totally. So, you and I were discussing, just in personal conversations, the source of a lot of this stuff that's going around. So let's say social media posts or even people, outbursts and all this kind of stuff. And you were mentioning to me, and I just honestly never really thought of it. It's very simple, but you were mentioning to me, the base of a lot of this is fear and the lack of understanding. Could you go into that a little bit? And
Yeah, so I think again, when things happen we can't put into our normal lives, things that are outside the norms, then we try it causes anxiety, it causes fear. A lot of people are in fear and anxiety right now. And for some people, that's a good thing. It's healthy to have some sort of anxiety. It makes us behave accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, that fear can cause them to try and search for a narrative that helps explain it.
yeah,
Because it can't just be a random event. It has to have some reason behind it. So a lot of times people will look for a narrative that fits into their worldview. And a lot of times that is the government is evil, or the pharmaceutical companies are evil, or
Right.
these people are doing it to make money because they're going to make vaccines and sell vaccines to make lots of money. So there's always these certain narratives, and these narratives are not uncommon. If you follow every kind of major outbreak of disease in the last 40, 50 years, every single one of them has been associated with these same theories, these same conspiracy theories. Ebola, when it broke out in Africa, the Africans blamed America for making the virus. They blamed the CDC
wow,
for spreading it in Africa to sell vaccines. Okay, because they had the patent on Ebola or something like that. So there's all these news sources in Africa are spreading the same kind of theories that, again, it was made by somebody who's coming here to make money off it by killing all the Africans. And then you look at SARS. Some scientists in Russia said SARS was made in the lab by combining mumps and measles, which is crazy in itself. But then China adopted the idea that US made SARS
Wow.
to depopulate China, to attack China as a weapon. You go back as far as a swine flu. They accused Rumsfeld, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, of that one, that he created or helped create the swine flu to weaponize it so his company that he was involved with, Gilead Corporation, could make money off the vaccines and the cure for it, and Tamiflu, stuff like that. So it's the same stories, the same narrative every time one of these things breaks out.
Right.
AIDS was a big one back in the day, in the 80s, and that was blamed on the CIA. People blame the CIA for that one to help depopulate Africa and also kill homosexuals. That was the two targeted prong.
Wow.
And we have very prominent people spreading those kind of theories, even to the point where people in Chicago are blaming Jewish doctors for injecting babies with AIDS. So again, this is constant, there's constant narratives that come out. And again, we would look back on those things and not even consider them to be options anymore. I think 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll see this whole thing differently.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be careful. We just don't get caught up in the fear of it.
Right.
Because it's natural. It's natural for people to get anxious and to look for answers. and to look for narratives. And the most common narrative is big government, big pharmaceutical companies, these evil actors who are behind the scenes to do this to a population for some certain reason.
Wow. And so, what would you say for people who are watching right now that are kind of like, okay, I'm feeling a lot of fear in this. You know, how would you give them advice to kind of navigate and rise above this? Because that's one thing I'm seeing a lot of us, and I don't want to, you know, the body of Christ, we're in this together, right? So I'm definitely not wanting to make an us and them kind of thing, but a lot of the body of Christ I'm noticing is getting caught up in the swirl of fear, of anxiety, of standing their ground, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so how do we rise above the fear and speak like the heart of God in this situation? Because I think that is the key that I'm not seeing a lot. I'm seeing some pockets of it, but I'm not seeing it a ton.
Well, I think a big part of that is get off social media.
Ooh,
Delete your Facebook accounts.
I mean, yeah.
Go back to Instagram and delete Facebook. Because honestly, we're feeding it.
Yeah.
If you continually look online and find these conspiracy theories and see people stirring you up, we live in a world where all the news cycles, everything is kind of coming at us, is set to stir us up,
Right.
to agitate us, to keep us in a constant state of either anger or fear. Okay? Angry at somebody or fearful of something.
Right.
And that's how they sell news. You don't sell news by saying, hey, everything's great today, guys, have a great day. Look at this story of this puppy dog. You sell news about, this is coming to kill you, watch our show and we'll show you how to protect yourself.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
these people are out to get you, or whatever it is. And so that's how they sell news. And so, and again, the people on YouTube and Facebook and these people who are posting all this stuff, they're making money from this stuff.
Right, right.
And that's what they do. They know how they know that they can basically, you know, call it clickbait. They kind of like create this crazy headline or this crazy story and throw it out there, and everyone jumps all over it, and they're making money off this. So a lot of this stuff is being controlled by trolls, people who just enjoy creating havoc in the
Right.
world, who just enjoy making up stuff and just throwing it out there and seeing who bites.
Right.
I mean, a great example of that was this whole Pizzagate.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot about that.
And these things don't come without real world consequences.
Right.
You know, Pizzagate was this idea that Don Podesta and Hillary Clinton had this sex trafficking ring under a pizza shop in DC. And it was based on the email hack that showed him ordering pizzas from this place regularly, which according to him was basically to help feed the volunteers he had. But these people on Reddit, this kind of the sewers of the internet, grabbed this idea and came up with this theory about him having a sex trafficking ring and all these pizzas being code words for sex trafficking.
Wow.
And it went around the internet, got really crazy, and to the point where a guy from North Carolina walks up there with an assault rifle and walks into a crowded pizza restaurant with an assault rifle, demanding to see the basement.
Oh, my gosh.
And of course, there is no basement. There was nothing there. And he got arrested. And then, unfortunately, one of our students here
Right.
went up to DC as well and tried to set fire to the place.
Right.
Again, believing these things to be true.
Yeah.
So these things have real world consequences. They're dangerous. And, you know, our children are listening.
Yeah.
We're spreading either truth or we're spreading lies.
Right. And you got to be responsible with it.
And we
Yeah.
have to be responsible with
Yeah.
that, because protecting the people who are less able to discern things, like our children,
Yep.
like people who are mentally ill. These people
Yep.
tend to jump on these things, you know, in a much deeper way.
Yeah.
We have to be careful what we're putting out there.
Right.
So I think part of it is just get off social media.
Yeah.
If you're constantly in a state of agitation and you're not living in peace, then something's stirring you up.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be social media.
Yeah.
I jumped in on that little post I did the other day, just because I got to a point where I was just like, I had enough. I've seen
It's
enough of this. I need to
escalating.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Say something. And again, 99% of the people who responded were like, thank you for saying this. Thank you for giving us a balanced response. Thank you for this. But occasionally people accuse me of being part of the global cabal to kill millions of people through microchipped vaccines or whatever it was. It just I'm just like, oh, okay.
Wow.
You clearly know me very well then.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the kind of response you get. So there is that fear. There is that, again, and again, the Bible says we're not given a spirit of fear, but a love, power, and a sound mind.
Right.
And it's interesting, it mentions a sound mind as the opposite of fear.
Right.
Because you could really argue that all mental disorders, or all non-organic mental disorders, are based around fear.
Yeah.
They lead us to different places. And I've been a conspiracy hobbyist most of my life. I delve into them. I like to read about them. I like to understand the thoughts behind them. I like to study them out a little bit. We were looking at, 9/11 was surrounded by all these kind of ideas. There's been events in our world that have just been surrounded by theories. And one thing I've noticed is that when I have someone who I know who starts going down the road of believing in all these things, it doesn't take long before they're really lost.
Yeah.
They really get stuck in a place of deception. And then suddenly everything's a problem. Everyone's out to kill them. There's paranoia. So I think personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I think there is a spirit of deception that come upon a person who absorbs these things and who kind of embraces these ideas and spreads them around. And that concerns me a lot. And I've seen it happen many times.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. But once they've gone down that route, there's almost no bringing them back.
Right.
And it does ruin their lives. It doesn't bear fruit, good fruit in their lives.
Yeah.
Because it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is such wisdom. And for those of you who are watching from all over the place, my hope for this conversation is that we can talk about the responsibility of what we have as Christians, right? The opportunity that we have, and also really more than anything, what we do well at Morningstar is make people uncomfortable and really address situations that need to be addressed head on. And so I think it's really good that we talk about this. And the best thing you can do in these kind of situations is have conversation. And, be okay. Like, we're okay if some of you don't have the same views as us. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
Nathan?
it's fine. I had a great conversation with a person online the other day. He didn't agree with anything I said.
Right.
And we had a good conversation back and forth. And we're good friends.
Yeah.
And if I see him in public, I'll be good friends with him. There's no need to get angry or violent with this stuff.
Exactly.
It's okay to have different opinions. But it's much better to have a good dialogue than this kind of attacking, accusing, because too many people they'll tell you need to wake up.
Right.
If you don't believe what I believe, you need to wake up.
Right.
It's like, well, I'm feeling pretty woke.
Yeah. To hear you say woke.
I don't know what that means really, but I feel pretty woke.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's so vital because, man, I mean, and let's just say COVID-19, whatever. I have seen so many Christians get in days worth of arguments on social media. Days. I'm talking about it lasts for almost a week over the most trivial things. And we're wasting our time instead of having honest conversation. It's just like accusation, paragraphs saying all this crazy stuff. And I think we've got to steward that better, and look at how Jesus did it in the Bible. Jesus would present, parables to people and let them come to their own conclusion. And you know what I mean? He presented things and okay, what do you think? I'm going to hear you out. Hear me out. You know what I mean? Sure. And he was the Son of God. He knew everything. He was right. But he still gave people the ability to express themselves, and he responded in kind. So, and yeah, of course, he also flipped tables and all that kind of stuff too. I'm not trying to...
With the religious people.
Yeah, ooh, you see? That's why we love Plowman. But yeah, I just think as Christians, we have the responsibility to communicate well and to show the love of God well and to steward the information that we have well.
Yeah. I think that comes down to blessed are the peacemakers. So one of the things that, I would love us to kind of challenge people on Facebook is this a peacemaking situation?
Right.
Am I spreading truth? Am I spreading life? Am I spreading encouragement, support? Or am I accusing and am I spreading fear?
Right.
And those are things that just take responsibility. Let's just see what we're doing here. Do I understand this subject enough to promote it?
Right.
Because a lot of people would say, I just threw it out there because I didn't understand it. It's like, well, we're making people famous.
A dog?
Social media has made a lot of people famous who should never be famous.
So, oh my gosh, amen.
And making people millionaires and making people role models who should never be role models. I'm not talking about conspiracy theorists. I'm talking about, I don't know how to say it nicely, young people who should not be famous.
Right.
But it's made them famous because they do stupid things online. And by stupid things, I mean they go out and do actual stupid things. They jump in front of cars, or they set themselves on fire, or they do things that get the likes or the views, and that makes them money.
Right.
And so I think we have to be, aware that social media is dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that situation with that pastor down in Florida who burned the Quran. Now, before social media, you would never hear about that guy.
Right.
But because of social media, his little stunt can go around the whole world.
Yeah.
And can cause riots and concerns and whatever, and cause battles and fights, people to die because of that.
Right.
That's the danger of social media.
Right.
One person who should never have a voice suddenly can go
Has a
global.
very loud voice. Yeah.
And then but then again, the good thing is the people who need a voice,
Right.
people who are oppressed, people in other countries who are being oppressed,
Right.
they get to have a voice.
Yeah.
If the country allows the Facebook or the internet to exist.
Right. And by the way, we're not saying that, or at least I'm not saying that all social media is bad. I think we're looking at the positives and negatives, especially in a time like this. Because I
Yeah.
really do think, I've seen social media, I mean, look at what we're able to do. We're able to do things like this. We're able to do
Sure.
like the worship stuff we do on Wednesdays or Sunday services. And beyond that, I mean, there's some really good stuff, but it could be mismanaged. And if
Right.
we give the attention to this stuff that doesn't need to be given the attention to, then it starts to glorify itself even more.
Becomes a distraction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a big fan of social media.
Well,
I think it's
we
anti-social
know.
media.
Yeah.
I think social media is destroying our culture as a sense.
Right.
I think it's separating us from people.
Right.
We're living in the most loneliest time of the planet's history, apparently, according to some experts. So I mean, there's a lot of things going on social media that's not healthy.
Right.
But it's the addiction to social media that's problematic.
Yes. Totally.
And that's the danger, is that people who don't have an audience or don't have a tribe find their tribe out there somewhere
right. Right.
through social media, which can be good, but it also can be detrimental.
Yeah, so I wanted to give an opportunity. We're going to keep discussing here, but I wanted to give an opportunity. If you have questions, go ahead and leave it in the comment section in the Morningstar Ministries page and the Rick page. We'll try to look between the two. But, today, really, again, we just really wanted to have just kind of an honest conversation. I know some of you, I can see in the comments, this is making you very uncomfortable because some of you believe things very strongly. And I want to say again, that is okay. But what we're
Right.
trying to do here is create a conversation that is, just balanced and calm. And let's just hear it. We're cool. Let's hear it all, what you have to say, what you have to think. But I think the main thing here is we've got to learn to talk to each other and also do our research.
But talk to each other in a healthy way.
Yes.
It's okay to disagree with each other. It's
Totally.
okay to have different opinions. It's not okay to attack each other. You make a comment on social media, next thing you're called an idiot, or you're called gullible or naive, or whatever they call you. It's like, there's no need for that. There are people in the church have very different opinions about the Bible, very different opinions about the end times, very different opinions about things that would seem should be clear by now. But we don't hate each other for it. We just accept the different opinions. And one thing we have to get better at is civil discourse.
Yeah.
Discussing things, it's okay for you to disagree. But what happens with fear, if fear is behind a lot of this stuff, you tend to snap out in anger or frustration or fear, which tends to attack the person. The ad hominem attacks, attacking the person rather than the argument. And that's dangerous. I think we've got too far into that in these times, and we need to get back to just discussing the points. What is going on? Why do we need to address this? And again, we're not going to get into any specifics today, because that would take us down a rabbit hole we're not going to get out of ever.
Yep.
But, we just have to get back to this civil discourse. It's okay to be different in your opinions, to be
Totally.
different ideas.
That's one thing I actually really love about Morningstar. So when I came here, 16 years ago, I came from a background of, you're a Christian, we all think the same, do the same, kind of like we were robots. I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
So when I came here, one of the first things the person that was leading the school at the time was telling me that we're going to bring in people. Of course we have the same foundational beliefs, of course, the Bible, all
Right.
that stuff. But we're going to bring in people that have different perspectives, different thoughts and viewpoints. And we're doing that so you can learn to arrive at your own what's the word I'm looking for here? Conclusion. As you can see, Nathan is far more educated than I. So,
Yes, conclusion's a very $5 word.
yeah, but arrive at your own conclusion. And I think this is the same thing here, like what Nathan is trying to relay, which I think is so healthy. And I just think it's just so important. And just for instance, Nathan, we had someone here on the comments kind of just say, hey, I see what you're saying, but I disagree with your perspective. I believe one can be questioning things and not be in fear and deception. I just want to say, I don't think that's what Nathan was saying.
No, I think questioning is one thing.
Yeah.
But posting accusations is not questioning.
Right.
So, for example, here's an example of something recent. You can say, hey, I'm not quite sure why we're still in lockdown. Why can't we open up the country right now? Why can't people who are young and who are not in danger of this virus go back to work? That's a question. An accusation, which is what tends to happen, is Fauci's trying to kill us all.
Right.
Okay, that's not questioning. Or Fauci's trying to destroy the economy to get Trump out, not reelected or whatever it is. Those are accusations. So yes, it's absolutely important to question stuff. It's absolutely important to question the government response here. It's absolutely important to question your governors and say, why is this going on? What's really happening? And try and find the truth of what's going on. But that's not what's happening. So often we're posting videos of other people's accusations and disguising them as questions.
Right.
Or disguising them as investigations. And I think we need to get back to, hey, I don't understand. We don't know what's going on at high levels. I mean, I don't know if there's an Illuminati or people, these evil actors behind the scenes pulling all the puppet strings for everybody. But I do see what's happening in the world, and I do want to say, how do we take care of ourselves, our family? Should we take certain medicines? Should we take vaccines? What's the real issue here? And look at some of the serious science. There's some good science out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people attack scientists, but most scientists aren't really politically motivated. Unfortunately, science has been hijacked by politicians for their own agendas. And that's been happening way too much recently. But the basic science is still pretty good out there. Mm-hmm. Most scientists aren't in it for the fame or the money. Definitely not in it for the money. And they're just doing it to further knowledge.
Yeah.
So there's information that's healthy, and we can look at this stuff. And again, as we do a post-mortem on this whole pandemic response, I think some things will come out that, yes, we did this well, but we did this terribly. Yes, we need to have better stockpiles, or yes, we need to have more of this. But those are questions we can ask. We can kind of discuss these things, even amongst our own selves, like, how could I have done better in this pandemic?
Right.
How could I have been better prepared? So, for example, if I know there's going to be another pandemic in a few years, what would I like to have in my possession? I'd like to have 3 months worth of salary built up so I don't get in trouble financially. I like to have toilet paper in my cupboards.
Oh my goodness.
Like,
We stockpile the toilet paper.
toilet paper. Now again, toilet paper was a great example of a fear response.
Yeah. Can you talk? I thought your perspective on that when this first all started happening. I know this is going to shift into the important topic of toilet paper, but you said something in one of our meetings with leadership about toilet paper. I was like, that makes so much sense.
It's a fear response to grab something that makes us comfort. That's a comfort thing. Toilet paper is a comfort thing, and when we're afraid, we tend to grab for things that are comforting. And so, like, a lot of people would go in the shops and buy like 20 gallons of milk.
Right, it just spoiled.
Now, you can't drink 20 gallons of milk in time to not spoil it.
They're just chugging it.
But again, that's a fear response. And, to stockpile and to take more than they need so others won't have, that's a fear response. That's a panic. That's like when we're in fear shuts down our ability to have empathy. We can't care for our fellow human being when we're afraid and we're scared and we're anxious.
Yeah.
That's a natural thing. Our brains cannot operate in empathy while we're afraid. Okay, that's a kind of survival instinct. I'll grab what I need to survive. I don't care about anybody else.
Right.
And so again, these are just fear things. And so, through this pandemic, I've been thinking about myself, like, how could I have done this better? Me and my wife and my family have done fine. We have not lacked anything throughout this whole time. We were prepared for these kind of eventualities. So again, we didn't have any worries. But again, how can we do better next time? How can we have those discussions about work?
Yeah.
How can all these employees out there do better work? I think some of these restaurants have done great by offering free delivery or offering curbside stuff.
Right.
I mean, me and my wife have, I think, personally supported Chipotle through this whole situation. So I think there's certain companies flowed with it and moved with it, but certain companies couldn't. They didn't have the same ability.
Right.
They had to shut down. And so how do we work from home better? How do we create remote desktops better? Or whatever it is we need to do, how do we do that better so we don't have to go off work anymore?
Yeah.
How do we flow with the times? I know, for example, as director of the Morning Star University, we had to go online pretty quickly.
Right, and did a great job, by the way.
And it was fine. We just seamlessly seemed to move from live classes to Zoom classes.
Yeah.
Thank the world for Zoom.
For real, yeah.
It's been helpful. And so, just how can we do that better next time? How can we have that really prepared, either stored up information or whatever it is we need to do better next time? So I think those are things we should be thinking about right now, not trying to blame somebody for all this. Because these things happen. These things aren't necessarily need to be blamed. And again, I get China is a mess. I have my own personal issues with China and their lack of transparency and their, what they do. But that's just the norm from them. Every time there's been an outbreak, they've done the same thing. They try and hide things. But we need to maintain connection with China because a lot of the flus that we get every season here in America come from China. All the flus that come here every season come from China, and we need to be able to get the resources from China to prepare the vaccines for those yearly flus. Now, whether you believe in vaccines or not, it's a whole different issue, but we need to have that relationship with China because a lot of diseases come out of China, unfortunately. A lot of the viruses. So we need to be able to keep relationship up with them, not shut that down.
Right.
That's why a lot of these research labs are working together. That's why a lot of people were coordinating research together because, again, it's a center of viruses in the world, pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
see, what I love about you, Nathan, is your responses are so balanced, and it's so if I could encourage anyone that's watching, just take a deep breath.
you getting a lot of responses out there?
And, well, I mean, here and there, but take a deep breath and just, really dig into it, do some research. It's just like it says in the word, study to show thyself approved. Right. I mean, this does apply to this as well, and also I want to say, because I've talked to people within the church culture and they're like, listen, this doesn't need to be talked about within church. I 100% disagree. I mean, we've got to talk about these kinds of things. We've got to be able to have honest conversations. We've got to be able to talk with other Christians who disagree. And maybe there is the Christians that have conspiracy theories. And maybe listen, not all of us here
on legitimate concerns. I don't want to label everything that's out there as conspiracy theories.
Right.
These are some they're
legitimate. Yeah,
there
you're
needs
totally
to be
right.
questions asked. There are some ideas out there that need to be probed into. Absolutely.
Yes, I
We need to
agree.
look into them, but we have to do it in a way that's not starting from a premise and pushing that agenda. It's got to start from, we don't know exactly, let's investigate this and look into it.
Yeah.
I think there are some malfeasance from certain pharmaceutical companies. We've seen it throughout history.
Right.
We need to question our drugs and our vaccines, stuff like that. We need to question it. But we don't need to spread lies about or fear about it. We need to question stuff and look into it. And then from the basis of what we discover, we can start to act according to what we need to do.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very clear. And once again, the purpose of today is not to be like, hey, listen, we just got to go with the flow and whatever. No, I mean, I think what Plowman just said was the perfect example. It is absolutely right to question. It's absolutely right to investigate. What we are talking about is the responsibility of spreading truth and communicating truth in a really responsible way.
Having good conversations.
And having a good conversation.
And again, I've been disturbed by a lot of the accusations that are going on right now against certain people in the world today, especially from Christians, especially from people, most people on my Facebook are Christians. Now, I'm just concerned about how many people are just accusing people that don't really know at all of hideous crimes or hideous kind of like ideas. And it's like, we don't need to be getting into that.
Right.
And we need to study these things out because the more you study, the more you realize that some of the stuff just isn't true. Some of the accusations, I think people understand fully just how much, it's always difficult. And I'll try and say this way. When I meet somebody, we always assume they're telling us the truth.
Right.
There's always that assumption of social responsibility. I ask, what do you do for a living? And they tell me, and I just assume it's true. There's no reason for me not to believe that. I think that happens a lot on social media. We just accept people saying the truth. But what shocks us sometimes is that people actually blatantly lie.
Right.
Because of different things they're trying to achieve. And I think we have to get more discerning about those kind of things when we start seeing people who are just blatantly lying about stuff, or again, these trolls. I don't think we understand trolls fully.
You want to explain, just in case people don't understand? Because every time you say trolls, I'm thinking
the bridge trolls, right?
Yeah,
Live under a bridge.
Explain to some. I get what you mean, of course, but to some people that maybe are like, "What are you talking about?" The basic
gist of a troll is someone who exists just to create havoc. They sit on the computer and they just make up stuff to upset people, to get more clicks on their posts, to make more money, because they have ads that go with their posts. It's called clickbaiting. And they'll say something crazy that's completely out there, but people want to read it because it sounds so crazy. And so they get millions and millions of hits, and they make thousands and thousands of dollars. And this could be a 16-year-old kid in Ukraine or a 14-year-old kid in wherever it is. I'm not saying Ukraine's a bad place, but just saying that they can be anywhere in the world and they're creating this content and making money on it. And again, they're just making up stuff, completely random stuff. It can be completely off the wall, but people will click on it to read it because they get upset, like, oh my God, that can't be true, or that sounds crazy, I want to read that. And again, it's just completely made up. And they make money on it. And that's why the danger is that we can't accept things that are on the internet as being truth because we don't know the source. Even some of these fake news sites that look like they're real news sites, but they're just run by one person who just copies and pastes stuff from other news sites and kind of adds a little bit of truth and adds a bunch of lies to it.
Like Daily News Now
or whatever. There's a whole
online.com.
bunch of them. There's thousands of them. And it's almost impossible to know what's a real news source versus what's a fake news source.
Right.
Because they all look so real. And especially for the older generation who are so used to only having 3 or 4 news services that were very integrous back in the day. We have lost that. And this is a blight on the media. We have lost faith in our media. And rightly so. There's been a lot of malfeasance, it's very biased now. Everyone's on this side or that side. No one's just giving objective news anymore, really. And so it's very hard to kind of figure out what's going on. There's more biased news out there that is bordering on untruth.
Right.
Than there is real, just straight up fake news. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to just walk through this. It's like a swamp.
Right.
Like, where do you find any part of truth?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So last night I was texting with a friend and we were talking about, kind of like masks, right? So, the whole thing is like you've got somebody saying, wear a mask. Then you got another news source saying, don't wear a mask. Then you got one news source saying, you need to wear gloves, not masks. And then one news source is saying, the gloves get contaminated the minute you put them on. Then one news source is saying, don't wear anything, just wash your hands thoroughly. And they're like, it's not enough. And so you're just going back and forth. We don't know what's what. And so
and that I think is the
wild.
real thing we need to learn from this is that our messaging was not good.
Right.
The central messaging from the government was not good. It was really confused. Why is Lowe's open, but churches weren't open?
Sure.
How can we go to Walmart, but we can't go to this place? There was such an inconsistent kind of like, yes, food is necessary. We have to go to stop and buy food. But Lowe's, there's a lot of things that are open that didn't make a lot of sense. And so there wasn't this consistent messaging. And again, the masks and the gloves and the washing, and there wasn't one consistent message that was able for people to grab a hold of and just walk with.
Right.
And again, part of that was because this is a new virus. We're trying to understand how it circulates properly. We're trying to understand how long it lives on surfaces. So as new information became more and more available, these things might shift.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be more consistent in our messaging.
Yeah.
It's been very confusing. I mean, there was one video from that lady, the comedian lady, who does a fake press conference.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And she's like. Just a constant source of misinformation, back and forth. So yeah, I think it was very confusing, and that created some of the anxiety because we really didn't know. Like, should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? What kind of masks should we wear? Are they effective? Are they not effective? Part of the reason for that initially was we need to keep all the masks for the healthcare workers.
Sure. Yep.
So unfortunately, healthcare workers are disproportionately affected by these kind of things. They're the ones who are with the patients all the time. They're the ones who are working with the patients. We want to make sure they have every bit of personal protection they need to protect them from their jobs. I mean, it's horrific to hear of nurses who are helping patients and get sick and die.
Right.
It's horrific to hear of doctors who are killing themselves because of the stress of this stuff. It's overwhelming. And again, these are pockets of these things around the country. So initially, I think the response was let the doctors and healthcare workers have all that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't hoard it for yourself. But then as things kind of open up a little bit more, it's like, if you're going to go out, then at least wear that. I don't think anyone claims that they're 100% effective. If you've got this person coughing in your face, a mask might not save you.
Right.
But I think social distancing plus mask, there's some protection there.
Yeah.
And gloves and stuff like that. So again, the messaging was not great. I think next time we can be much more consistent with our messaging and understanding why certain things happened and why certain things didn't.
So I think our next question is, when are you going to run for president? No, I'm just kidding.
I can never run for president.
I know. So You know, I think everything that you're saying is it's just really important. And I want to encourage some of you, and for those of you who agree or disagree, share this with people, because one thing I'm not seeing really from the body of Christ is these conversations. I'm seeing a lot of motivational, like, hey, you know, blah, 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 but we're not hearing practical things that are also with the spiritual, motivation, which is great. You need both. We need both. And I love what Rick represents. He's really taught me this as I've gotten older, and I've really gleaned from it more, is that, you know, there really is a ditch on both sides. Absolutely. Always. And you've got to be. And so I think what we're trying to do here is have honest conversation, but also say, hey, listen, don't give in to fear. That, you know, the Lord is our hope. He is our rock. He's the most steady thing that we'll ever have. But at the same time, educate yourself, prepare yourself. You get what I'm saying? So,
and one thing I liked about Rick's response here at Morningstar was that he was very compliant with what the government was requesting.
Very, yeah.
He wasn't trying to push any agendas. He wasn't trying to do this, even though it's costing, you know, Morningstar to have different services here. Sure. But he was very compliant and wanted to protect the people in the church and the people who live here in this building from this. And so he was really following the recommendations, and we still are. Yep. We're not going to have church until the government says we can have church.
Right.
And again, it's not because we're slaves or we're, you know, drones or we're not awake or whatever. It's just because protection. I mean, we have to be patient in these times with our leaders, whether government leaders, church leaders, whatever it is, people in high levels of government. No one really knows what's going to happen as we reopen this country again. Right. We don't know if it's going to get worse again. This virus can mutate, it could change, it could start affecting younger people now. We just don't know. And so I would hate to be in the decision-making process where I've got to figure out between, okay, I've got to save the economy somehow, but I've also got to save people. And I don't want to open the economy and lose another 100,000 people or 20,000 people because of doing that. And so we need to be patient. These people, you know, again, there's people on the medical side that are only focused on saving lives and preventing the spread. Then the people on the economy side that are only focused on saving the economy. And those two don't interchange very much.
Right.
You know, doctors and people who in the medical side don't go to economy classes and how to run an economy in college. And the same thing for the economists, they don't go to medical classes. So they're very very wide apart on some of these issues. But how do we bring them together? How do we kind of somehow coordinate the medical response with the economical response? And that's the biggest challenge I think we're facing right now, is how do we merge those two together? And not that one is evil or the other is evil, they don't connect in any real way, but how do we bring them together? That's what I think is the biggest challenge on this. Yeah. And so be patient, they're not trying to do harm, they're trying to do good. Both sides are trying to do good. But we've got to be patient with this process and learn through this. Because again, we just don't know. No one really knows what's going to happen. So, you know, it's a difficult choice.
Yeah, but I'll tell you who does know, and this is not, me being cheesy. I mean, the Lord really knows, and we gotta lean into Him.
That's key.
I mean, it really is. I mean, and I think, you know, and this is me talking to myself, you know, just really saying, okay, David, you know, just remember this. Now's the time, you know, to lean into to the Lord. Now's the time for the church to lean in and get clear answers from Him, you know? Right. Now's the time to hear what He says, the direction that He has for us. And so even, you know, I know we're kind of getting into all kinds of stuff, you know, we're talking about government, you know, pharmaceutical, all this kind of stuff, but really all that we need to rely on is Jesus. Yeah. And, you know, and He sent the Holy Spirit to help us. And, you know, and it's, I think when we as a church can together say yes and learn and to lean into Him, right, even in the midst of disagreements and even in the midst of feeling fear and anxiety, that I think He's going to really start moving in this. I'm looking forward to seeing what He's going to do in the midst of all this.
Yeah, I really believe that there's something good in this. Yeah. I think there's a couple of aspects that I really, you know, have appreciated about this time is, first of all, it's a reset. I really believe it was a reset. It's a chance for us to reevaluate everything that's going on in our lives and our priorities and realign them. Take some time away from all the noise of work and stress and all like that, and just stop and say, what's important in my life? I've seen more families going for walks in the park. I've seen more people doing that kind of stuff than ever before, and it's just like, and it's good, and hopefully we won't go back to business as usual after this is over. I hope this has been a chance to reevaluate all those things and to shift back to a healthier lifestyle away from social media. I'll just throw that out there. But I think there's been part of that has been that time to reset. I think this is a time to prepare for the next one. I think now that we have a teachable moment, that we've had a pandemic, when the next one comes, we'll be more prepared. And there will be a next one. You know, there are a lot of things out there that are problematic in this world. And people have been tracking them for a long time. And we still don't know how to deal with viruses any more than we did 50, 60 years ago. They're still not the same. You know, we're learning new ways to deal with them, new ways to stop them, but they're still pretty primitive in how we deal with them. That's why lockdown was the most effective way. Everyone stay home and that will stop the virus spreading. That's all we knew. And so hopefully this will be a chance for us to learn from that. And so the next one, which might be worse, way worse than this one, we can easily just flow straight from, you know, work life, whatever life, back into a lockdown situation and back out again without, you know, a lot of this fear and panic. So I'm hoping this will be a good teachable moment.
Yeah.
And again, we haven't had a teachable moment like this for a long time. So.
And speaking of a teachable moment, I'm going to do a little plug here. But honestly, this is really timely. And, you know, Rick wrote something years ago called Overcoming Fear. And I think you could get it from what I was told for like $2 or $2.50 on the website because we've got 50% off. But if you go to Morningstar's bookstore, but this is so key. You know, this is one of the key things to really learn from in a time like this. Just, you know, if you're struggling with fear, because listen, that is something that is prominent out there right now.
Absolutely.
And the Lord doesn't want you walking in that. And so if you are walking in fear and you need like a tool, this is a great one. I'd encourage you to go check that out. But, you know, as we close out today, we just, again, wanted to have this conversation, share this with people you feel like would need it or would even make, you know, make them angry. It doesn't matter. We want to stir up the conversation. We're hoping that this conversation, you know, had people thinking, got people maybe upset. It's all good. I wanted all of it. So this is good. I'm hoping that
it can be good. We're not trying to make anyone upset, but I think people will get upset. But if you want to talk to us about this, you want to set some comments, I'm happy to respond to comments, but I will not respond to any accusations.
Yeah.
Or any kind of like, you're an idiot, get out of there, or you're a globalist, or you'll kind of kill the world. It's like, we're not going to respond to that kind of stuff. But if you want to have a conversation, ask questions and talk to us, we're happy to hear some stuff. You know, we're open for dialogue. This should be a kind time for talking.
Right.
Not for accusing, not for, you know, attacking each other.
We want to really stir up. We have to be able to stir up the conversation, no matter what emotion it brings forth. The real test is how we respond.
Right.
Which I think is like the Bible, right? In general, it's like everything is just one big. How are you going to respond to the situation?
It's a sign of maturity to be able to hold a conversation with someone who
100%.
disagrees with you in a healthy way.
Right.
And so, you know, if you want to have a mature conversation, talk about these things, we're happy to discuss this with you. But again, if you start accusing us or start threatening us, then we probably won't respond.
Yeah, most likely not. So anyway, Nathan, I so appreciate your insight.
I appreciate you inviting me on today. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
the Dave Valier show.
Yeah, you're so balanced. It's just so awesome. And I'll do also a little plug here for this. You know, Nathan is our MSU director. This is what I love about our school. And I went through this school 14 years ago. Our school provides, of course, you know, we're a ministry school, but really above that, we are a leadership school. We are a school of life, you know, so Nathan really helps students not only have the foundation of, you know, that's first and foremost, of course, guys, you know, love the Lord, be rooted in God, but also, you know, people are walking away with survival skills. They're walking away with the ability to
real world skills,
you know, real world skills, their business, you know, confrontation. I love that Plowman always goes after that one. I love his classes on confrontation and communication. This is stuff that like you walk away and you're not like just like, oh yeah, I could preach a good 5-point sermon, but like I could live an adult life.
How to survive leadership. How to survive the rigors of leadership.
Yeah, and it's really, really good. And it's really balanced, based in the Bible, based in experience of someone who really walked with the Lord. And so if you're looking to be a part of that, send your kids to that, I encourage you, check out MorningstarUniversity.com.
And don't forget, David Valier also runs our worship school.
Oh, yes.
And this is incredible too, because this is the worship school that really pushes you as well.
Yep.
It's not just come and here, play our songs. It's come and learn how to find your voice.
Yeah.
Learn how to find the music God's put inside you and express that in whatever way that is, whether it be death metal, which is,
we do have that.
We do have that sometimes, whether it be some sort of folksy music, whatever it is. Hopefully, just not Coldplay sound-alikes, but you know,
we got all.
We got all of it.
Rick's really wanting us to do.
Country and
what does he
Western?
want us to do, Nate? Salsa worship. He keeps saying,
Salsa
I want
worship.
salsa worship. We got to find, so if
We
you're
had an
right.
awesome guy play the school last year who was from South America who had that kind of vibe to him.
Who?
He didn't make it in, unfortunately. He couldn't get his
Oh,
visa.
yes, I remember that video.
But he
yeah.
would have been awesome to
yeah,
have all that
would have
going
been
on.
awesome. But anyway, thank you for joining us today. Again, we hope this kind of stirred up some, some conversation in you. And, again, if you have any questions or anything like that, leave it in the comments. We'll look afterward. We'll even respond. But thank you for viewing. We're going to be back tomorrow for our Worship Wednesday, and we're looking forward to that. So just be checking out throughout the week. We're going to be doing a lot of live stuff, a lot of interactive stuff. We want to connect with you. So again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a really great day. Do not give in to fear. Lean into Jesus. He is our source.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Caught beneath the whole of grace, blinded by the splendor of your face. I know I can't run from love. The deepest space will never be enough. Now I have a song to sing. Yeah, you have put a melody in me. And all the times you could let me drown, you never fail. I know you've got me now. God, I know that you have got me now. How good it is, how good it is to love you. It never ends. How good it is to love you. Oh, how good it is to love you. We'll never stop singing to you. We'll never stop singing to you.